Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel, and thank you for joining me for another coffee and crime time. And this is a very sad and wild case. So, a solar eclipse happens when the moon passes between the Earth and the sun, blocking our view of the sun as the moon passes. And a total solar eclipse is very rare. One that can be viewed from the United States is even more rare, and many ancient civilizations viewed eclipses as something otherworldly, and often as something to be feared. In ancient China, it was believed that solar eclipses occurred when a celestial dragon attacked and devoured the sun. And in order to save the sun, the people would bang on loud drums, make a lot of noise to scare the dragon away. And they knew they'd been successful when the sun reappeared after several minutes of darkness. In South America, the Inca people believed solar eclipses were a sign of anger from their sun god. The Inca would fast and occasionally offer sacrifices to appease this god. And although they were not usually known to perform human sacrifices, it is thought that the event of a solar eclipse was seen as a serious enough event to do so. The Chippewa would shoot flaming arrows at the sun, hoping to get it burning brightly again. And people in Japan believed that poison would drip down from the heavens during an eclipse. Now, as most or all of us watching or listening to this know, because we've been alive for more than 30 days, the most recent solar eclipse took place on Monday, April 8th, and the path of totality stretched from Mexico to Canada. Hours before the eclipse was visible in the area of Southern California, law enforcement in Los Angeles were called to 3 separate and tragic scenes, and it took them a few hours to realize that all 3 crimes were connected, and these events may also have been connected to the impending eclipse. Historically, solar eclipses have been a time of confusion and fear for people, and even today, when we have the knowledge to understand why these celestial events happen, some people still believe that solar eclipses are an omen of dark things to come. The details of this case are very bizarre and shocking, and we're going to get into it. But first, let's have a word from the sponsor of today's video. Surfshark is a modern VPN designed with the user in mind. Surfshark encrypts all data sent via the internet, protecting your passwords, private messages, photos, videos, and other sensitive data from prying eyes. But it can do so much more than that. With Surfshark VPN, you can overcome location-based price discrimination on plane tickets and car rentals by simply connecting to VPN servers in different countries. When you're traveling, you can also use Surfshark to not get locked out of your bank account, and you can use it to continue reaching your favorite sites and services even in countries that ban them, because Surfshark gets around censorship and geo-blocking. With Surfshark VPN, you can also access different entertainment and media, including 15 of the largest Netflix country libraries, including the United States and Japan. You can also watch BBC, iPlayer, Hulu, and other limited streaming services wherever you are by using VPN servers in the countries where they're available. And you can unlock content on most platforms by installing the VPN on computers, phones, smart TVs, and more. Additionally, Surfshark has 3,200 plus servers in 100 countries, and they're the only VPN to have coverage in 100 countries at this time, so you'll find a server anywhere you go. Surfshark can do so much, and they have apps for all platforms, from PC to Mac, Linux, Android, iOS, Amazon Fire Stick, Apple TV, Chrome, Firefox, Xbox, and PlayStation. One of the best parts about Surfshark is that one subscription allows you to install and run Surfshark VPN on an unlimited number of devices at the same time. So my computer, my phone, my tablets, my kids' phones, tablets, my mom's computer, all of the video game consoles in our house, right? Because now that you can use video game consoles like PS5 and Xbox and VR and things to actually interact with other people, it puts your kids in a dangerous position because somebody who knows how could use their IP address to track where they're connecting from. And with Surfshark VPN, you can just make it look like they're connecting from someplace completely different than where they're actually connecting from. And it just adds that extra layer of safety and protection to your internet experience, to your gaming experience, to your home, to your family. And Surfshark offers 24/7 live customer support. So if you're someone like me, technologically challenged, and something happens, like a few months ago, my VPN stopped working on my phone and it ended up being a phone issue. But I was able to call customer service, I think it was 1 o'clock in the morning, and they were able to walk me through a solution so that I could use the VPN to watch the movie that I was trying to watch. Plus, Surfshark VPN offers you a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if it doesn't do all the things I'm saying it can do, you'll get your money back, no questions asked. And that means there's no reason that you shouldn't try Surfshark VPN out. All you have to do is go to surfshark.deals/stephanieharlowe and you can get up to 3 additional months of Surfshark VPN for free, which is a great deal. That is surfshark.deals/stephanieharlowe and use code stephanieharlowe to protect your online privacy today and open up a whole new world of the internet that you didn't even know was available to you. Thank you so much to Surfshark VPN for sponsoring today's video, the best and only VPN that I use. And if you're looking for a VPN and you're in the market, Surfshark's the one. Let's dive into today's video. Okay, so let's travel to the Montecito, a luxury apartment complex on Varial Avenue in Woodland Hills, California. Woodland Hills is an upscale neighborhood bordering the Santa Monica Mountains in the San Fernando Valley region of Los Angeles, and it's considered one of the best places in Southern California to live. But overnight, between Sunday, April 7th and Monday, April 8th, some residents at the Montecito were finding it not so desirable as they listened to their neighbors, Danielle Johnson and her partner, 29-year-old Jalen Chaney, loudly arguing. But in apartment complexes with everyone living in such close quarters, it's not uncommon to hear arguments or smell what your neighbor's cooking for dinner, so no one initially thought too much about it. At around 4:30 a.m. on April 8th, the Los Angeles Police Department began receiving calls for motorists in the Westchester area of the 405, which is a freeway running along the southern and western parts of the greater Los Angeles area. When police arrived, they found a 6-month-old baby girl in the middle of the 405 with major injuries. On the side of the road, another girl was recovered. She was 9 and also injured. Emergency responders pronounced the 6-month-old baby dead at the scene, and the 9-year-old was transported to the hospital where she was treated for her injuries and thankfully survived.
A grim discovery during the Monday morning commute. 2 children found on the 405 North. A 5 to 6-month-old female baby found in lanes of traffic, pronounced dead. Another female, 7 to 9 years old, is in the hospital being treated for moderate injuries.
This is still under investigation. We're hoping witnesses can call with further information. One child was located in lanes and the other was on the right shoulder. At the moment, it is unknown how the injuries were caused.
Air 7 HD overhead shows the CHP's investigation, closing 2 lanes of traffic and meeting with the coroner. The CHP doesn't know how the baby and child ended up on the freeway and how they were injured.
Witnesses claim there was a black sedan in the area at the time of the incident. They didn't indicate what relation they had, but just possibly involved. So if anyone else was in the area, northbound 405 at Centinela Avenue, approximately 4:30, we'd appreciate if you could call with any information, even those vehicles that maybe have dash camera. Possibly, maybe you didn't see something, but maybe if you look back, there's something available to us that could be helpful.
The 9-year-old girl would later be interviewed by detectives, and she would tell them what had happened to herself and the 6-month-old baby, who was her little sister. About 30 minutes after law enforcement was called to the 405, they received another call that led them to the Redondo Beach area, about 10 miles away from the scene where the 2 children were found. And that was where they found 34-year-old Danielle Johnson dead behind the wheel of a black Porsche Cayman that had crashed into a tree going over 100 miles per hour. Around 6:30 a.m., as officials tried to deal with these 2 seemingly unrelated tragedies, they began receiving calls from residents at the Montecito apartment complex, and deputies were sent there to assess the situation.
Jalen Chaney's mother sent us these pictures of her 29-year-old son, uniformed and smiling. It's the way she wants the world to remember him. Neighbors found the U.S. Air Force veteran's body Monday morning after seeing blood in the hallway and elevator of their Woodland Hills apartment complex.
Called 911. I said, something bad has happened here, and they connected me with an EMT.
Richard Berglund says his daughter heard screaming coming from the unit next door just before 4 a.m. Monday.
Walked out our front door, and to the left is their door, and their door was wide open, and there was blood all throughout their front door, all the way to the hallway leading to the elevator, and blood on the walls.
I went into the apartment. I stepped over blood puddles, and and checked on the body and saw that he was dead. He was face down.
Other neighbors told us they also heard an enraged woman yelling. Police suspect Cheney's girlfriend, Danielle Johnson, stabbed him during the argument and then fled with her 2 daughters in her SUV, crashing through the apartment's garage gate.
According to the Los Angeles Times, Jody and Richard Berglund's 26-year-old daughter had woken up around 3:40 a.m. Monday to the sound of a child and a woman screaming in the apartment next door. When she left for work a few hours later, she saw the neighbor's door had been left open, and there was blood on the floor of the hallway and blood streaked in the elevator. So basically, she leaves her apartment, she goes walking towards the elevators, she sees that the door to her neighbor's apartment is open, there's blood on the floor near this door. And then as she goes and gets in the elevator, she sees blood in the elevator. So she goes down to the parking garage, gets in her car, and then she called her parents from her car and told them to go check on their neighbor's apartment because she felt that clearly something bad had happened. Her father, 61-year-old Richard Berglund, went over to the unit next door and he looked inside. He said that at first glance, the apartment was in disarray, everything was knocked over, but what he was shocked and worried about was that he saw legs sticking out from the kitchen and blood everywhere. So I assume you open the door to the apartment, there's like a hallway and then rooms like the living room, the kitchen, bedrooms off of that hallway. So he kind of looked in, maybe stepped in, saw the blood, and then could only see a person's legs coming into the hallway from the kitchen. So Berglund called 911 and the paramedics on the phone told him to go over to the body and check on this person who was injured. So Richard stepped over puddles of blood to walk into the kitchen where he found 29-year-old Jalen Cheney face down, wearing only his socks and underwear, surrounded by blood, and clearly no longer alive. Jalen Cheney had been stabbed to death. Now, Jalen was born in Palm City, Florida in May of 1994, and at this time there isn't really a lot known about his early life. There's really not a lot known about him, but we do know he was an Air Force veteran who served as a senior airman and worked as a squadron armament technician. In 2021, Jalen, while stationed in Italy, became interested in astrology and alternate healing, and he connected with an astrology influencer named Danielle Johnson through her website, where she called herself Aoka and identified as an astrology and Reiki master. Danielle offered products and services on her website, such as purifying cleanses for homes, which she would perform on a weekly basis every Monday at 8 a.m. for a fee of $6.99 a month. Danielle would also perform weekly aura cleanses on Sundays at 5 p.m. for $2.99 a month. She also offered an alcohol balancing system to keep her customers' energy more stable, healthy, and grounded while they consumed adult beverages, and that was just a one-time charge of $11.99. I assume however many times you wanted to be grounded and have stable, healthy energy while drinking, you would, if you felt like it, pay that $11.99 again. But the biggest ticket item on Danielle's website was the healing series, which she described as an in-depth, intrinsic healing process that would reverse the damage created by personal traumas, generational traumas, unhealthy beliefs, and any toxic conditioning for $150 a month for 5 months. According to Danielle, quote, "This series will be life-changing for anyone who has struggled with confidence, second-guessing themselves, and not feeling good enough. This is the key to feeling completely comfortable in your skin. We are not fucking around in 2020. We will know our worth. In 5 months, we'll be going through the ultimate glow-up: self-love, self-empowerment, self-validation, self-worth, and self-esteem. We're going to remove any energy and beliefs that cause you to attract any person or situation that does not nourish you and build you up." End quote. Now, at first, Jalen connected with Danielle as a customer. He purchased some candles from her. They would chat about astrology. But as the two talked and got to know each other, they developed a close and then a romantic relationship. And Jalen would eventually move to Los Angeles in order to be with Danielle and her daughter. So Danielle, she had a child from a previous relationship. And according to Jalen's family, his mother and brother, Jalen was never super interested in children. He didn't really like kids, but he essentially treated Danielle's daughter as his own. He loved her. He fathered her. He took care of her. The child's biological father had not been in the picture, I think, since she was born. It looks like this was a very early marriage that Danielle had with the father of her oldest daughter, and it kind of fizzled out really quickly. But Danielle Johnson, she had a lot in her past that hadn't panned out the way she wanted it to or the way she expected it to. Danielle was born to a 17-year-old single mother, Sharonda Cole. Sharonda and Danielle lived for a time with Sharonda's aunt and uncle who had been raising Sharonda, but when Danielle started high school, she moved in with her mother's brother and his wife because her mother, Sharonda, was battling an active drug addiction. Danielle attended college at Norfolk State University, where she studied psychology, sang in the choir, and learned to play the piano. But when she didn't end up graduating, Danielle became interested in Reiki work and energy healing, hoping to fix what had been broken between herself and her mother, the mother-daughter bond, the relationship between the two. And Danielle also hoped to help her mother, Sharonda, find the strength and resilience to fight her demons with drug addiction. But according to Sharonda Cole, Danielle was fighting her own demons as well. She had gotten married young, and in 2015, after giving birth to her first child, Danielle struggled with postpartum depression. She would soon be telling her mother about how she was always worried, always anxious, always stressed. She was worried about money. She was worried about where her life was going. She was worried about her marriage falling apart. Sharonda Cole urged her daughter to seek help, whether through her own energy healer, like Danielle's helping Sharonda do energy work, but Sharonda was like, hey, get your own energy healer, somebody who can help you. Or better yet, because you're dealing with postpartum, which is a real heavy and almost impossible to work through on your own condition that many women experience after pregnancy and childbirth, go see a mental health professional, But according to her mother, Danielle felt that she could get through this dark time in her life on her own. Sharonda Cole said, quote, nobody knew what was happening because she was so good at seeming like she was good, but she was not good for a while, end quote. Cole also said that she tried to be there for Danielle and support her as Danielle had been doing for her, but, quote, she saw me as being the one who had injured her, and her father, of course, not being around, end quote. Danielle may not have been ready to unpack her own baggage, but she had always gotten a lot of satisfaction and validation from helping others, first her mother, and then clients that she would meet through her website and social media presence. Since 2015, Danielle had been posting on Twitter under the handle Mystic Lipstick, where she would go on to gain more than 100,000 followers. And yes, I know it's called X now, but I will never call it that. It's dumb. It's Twitter. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. According to the bio on her website, quote, Danielle Aoka is a certified Reiki master teacher who is also trained in over 10 different alternative healing modalities. At a young age, Danielle had a near-death experience at 3 years old, which served as her rite of passage into shamanism. Coming from a rich lineage of indigenous shaman and medicine women, Danielle's spiritual gifts began to blossom. Danielle began her tutelage with her personal healer in 2011 after beginning her own healing journey. After 3 years of intensive training, Danielle began to expand her abilities by creating a unique method of healing that combined her training along with her knowledge of energy, physics, and psychology. After going to undergrad for psychology, Danielle decided that she wanted to go beyond the mundane limitations of the traditional therapeutic methods of healing and started her professional career. Offering services which include rituals, intuitive guidance, remote healing, and astrology, Danielle has developed a grounded approach to total healing for the everyday struggles we face and experience in our lives. With clients worldwide, Danielle has helped subscribers in Argentina, Toronto, New York, Los Angeles, Japan, China, India, Australia, South Africa, West Africa, London, Korea, New Zealand, Spain, and many more. Combining science, alternative healing, developmental psychology, and statistical research on the impactful physiological effects that emotions and trauma have on our overall health and well-being, Danielle offers a unique approach to healing the mind, body, and soul, end quote. And in general, I don't find anything wrong with this because I believe in some of this stuff. I think that having a mental health professional who does have more traditional beliefs and maybe working with a, alternative healing method like Reiki or energy work is absolutely fine. It's a double-pronged attack and you never know. And I believe because our bodies are made up of energy that that some of this may have real merit. And apparently, others felt that Danielle was the real deal, because in 2016, Danielle was interviewed by Refinery21 for an article titled How to Achieve Career Success in 2017, according to the stars, where the outlet proclaimed, quote, "For those of you already following Danielle Aoka on Twitter, you're more than familiar with her knack for honesty. She's got a brilliant gift for calling out the nonsense of any sun sign in need of real truths." The New York City-based Aoka was 23 when she made astrology her day job. Before that, she was always reading charts for her coworkers and their friends, and her bosses encouraged her to do something bigger. Today, Aoka has more than 50,000 Twitter followers, and she's built something of a spiritual network on her website, where members can connect via message boards and have their auras and energies cleansed for a small price per month, end quote. Now, Danielle had been New York-based for a good portion of her life, but in 2019, she moved to Los Angeles to try and kickstart a singing career. That same year, Danielle wrote a blog post on her website titled Toxic Nurturing. I love too hard. I give too much. And reading this post definitely gave me some insight into how Danielle may have seen herself through the lens of her own childhood. She wrote, quote, "Toxic nurturing is a term I came up with for those who have birthed their sense of nurturing and love out of trauma. The toxic nurturer usually had to grow up fast. When a child doesn't receive the emotional attention, space, and affirmation that is needed from their parents, this stunts the child psychologically and emotionally in a way where processing emotions and life events healthily is hard to achieve without going back and healing those wounds. Adults who are currently toxic nurturers often do not have a healthy relationship with their mother growing up and usually experienced an emotionally tumultuous upbringing where their needs were rarely a priority, if at all. These children often grow up wanting to give others the love they never had. In turn, they rarely consider giving themselves that experience of love first. When we experience lack, desperation is usually formed. This is not an intentional response, rather a survival response. Humans have survival mechanisms that activate when we feel a threat to our well-being. Children need love, attention, and affection from their parents. A great example of this is a baby's need for physical touch. Holding and rubbing a baby affectionately stimulates the brain's synapses and acts as a large contributor to growth and neural connectivity. With the love of a mother or other caretakers, infants develop more efficiently. Without the needed nurturing, trauma forms as a result of the lack and spreads into other areas of our lives. The toxic nurturer usually feels a compulsive need or even duty to take care of anyone who comes into their life. This often comes from similar conscious intentions where they don't want to see others suffer the way they did, end quote. And I feel a little called out by this, and I think a lot of you out there listening can identify with this. And that's why Danielle wrote a blog post, because it's relatable. We become people pleasers sometimes when we have a childhood where we felt like we weren't enough or where we felt like we were a burden to others. And so we learn, or the message is sent to us, that in order for us to be liked, in order for our needs to be met, we have to become whatever someone else wants us to be, or we have to give them everything they need. Like, we have to prove our worth to them and to their lives so that they will love us. And I think I've talked about this before, but that's a bad habit and should be broken, which is something I've been working on for the past several years. And I think I'm really getting there. And I think this also speaks to a lot of sort of, maybe resentment and, bitterness and anger towards her mother. Now, as Sharonda Cole said, Danielle was mad at her. She looked at her as the person who had wounded her, along with her father, who was never around. But because the mother stayed and wasn't perfect and had issues and made mistakes, as young people do, Danielle felt that she didn't get what she needed emotionally from a parental figure. And it was hard for her to let that go, to forgive, to forget. And we'll see that in early 2021, Danielle began living with her mother in an apartment in North Hollywood, and the two women began selling a line of candles called Rich Girl Magic. According to the Los Angeles Times, the relationship and business venture were initially going well, but things got progressively more and more tense. Quote, "When things were good, they were great," Cole said, "but the pressure of work and life sometimes got to Johnson," her mother said, "and they increasingly clashed. Johnson's workload increased, and that worsened tensions. Sometimes Johnson woke her mother up at 3 a.m. asking her to interpret dreams, she said. Cole said her daughter often became incensed over social media posts that didn't perform well. The two fought frequently, Cole said, and during one argument, Johnson became physically violent. Soon after, she told her mother to move out, and Cole said she spent the next 2 years in homeless shelters in Los Angeles. End quote. That makes me sad. That makes me very sad. But although the relationship with her mother was degrading, Danielle, who was going through a divorce from the father of her daughter, she was happily embarking on a new journey with her boyfriend, Jalen. Reportedly, Jalen was a very good person, empathetic, extroverted, caring, smart, emotionally intelligent. He'd spent years traveling the world with the Air Force, but according to Danielle's mother, Jalen was also an emotional soldier for her daughter. He would sit on calls and listen to Danielle for hours. Cole said, quote, "He just wanted to love her. He wanted to love her the way she needed to be loved," end quote. The two would go on to share another daughter. But before Danielle got pregnant with her second child, she and Jalen took a trip to Florida in 2022, where she was able to meet some of his friends from his past, including a woman named Jenna Butler. Now, Butler had been in the same Christian youth group as Jalen when they were younger, and she remembered him most for his amazing heart, his never-ending joy, and his infectious laugh. And Jenna Butler said that this was a normal visit. They seemed like a typical couple during a casual lunch in Orlando. Jenna said she didn't see anything off with Danielle or with the relationship. But later that same year, Jalen sent a text to his brother, Matt. And this text was basically described as being cryptic. And it hinted that there may have been some ongoing issues between Jalen and Danielle. The text said, quote, "I have been dealing a lot personally with my girlfriend that I don't care really to share right now because it's not appropriate," end quote. Residents at the Montecito apartment complex would later say that they didn't really know a lot about the couple. They would sometimes see Jalen take the older daughter to school, or they would see Danielle and Jalen in passing and exchange hellos, but it seemed the couple were private. They kind of were described as being cold, and they didn't go out of their way to make any further connections with their neighbors. Sharonda Cole says she only spoke to her daughter one more time after their falling out. She was walking back to the shelter after a work shift when Danielle and Jalen pulled up next to her and got out of their vehicle. Apparently, Danielle was not done rehashing the past and the issues that she still felt remained between herself and her mother. Sharonda Cole said that in that specific moment, she personally did not feel like getting on the defensive about something that had happened months ago, and they had talked it into the ground and there was no kind of fixing it. And I mean, Danielle kicked her out and Sharonda had to live in homeless shelters, so she probably wasn't feeling super warm to her daughter, let's be honest. And so Sharonda said that at that time, her demeanor was very much like, why are we talking about this? And that's when apparently Danielle's partner, Jalen Chaney, got involved, telling Sharonda that he wanted her to take responsibility for the estrangement between herself and Danielle. And then Jalen and Sharonda Cole began arguing, and Cole told Jalen that the information he was getting from Danielle was not 100% accurate. And she told him, quote, "You only know what she told you. I told you she is nothing but an illusion," end quote. And before the couple left her that day, and this was the last time that Sharonda Cole ever saw her daughter or Jalen Chaney, Sharonda told Jalen, quote, "You're on your own. I can't help you," end quote. And that brings us back to April 8th, 2024, the day of the solar eclipse, and the day that law enforcement in Los Angeles found themselves faced with three very different but very tragic crime scenes that they initially had no idea were connected.
And police tied the three cases together. She is the suspect, the woman they believe murdered her boyfriend or possibly even her husband, the father of that 6-month-old baby. And then they say she left her children on that freeway where the baby was killed. Whether or not she lost control of her Porsche or crashed into the tree on purpose is part of the investigation. They're not ruling out that she crashed on purpose and died by suicide.
Police would interview Danielle's surviving daughter, the 9-year-old girl, and she was able to tell them the early morning events of April 8th. She said she had seen her mother stab Jalen Chaney while he was on the couch. Danielle Johnson then allegedly tried to drag his body out of the apartment, but she was unable to, so she left him in the kitchen and then collected her 2 daughters, getting them into her black Porsche SUV. Danielle then drove away, crashing through the gate of the parking garage before speeding to the 405, at which point she slowed down slightly, opened the car door, and told her older daughter to get out. When the girl, who was holding her baby sister in her arms, refused, Danielle pushed them both out of the moving vehicle, where the baby was struck by a passing vehicle. Danielle then continued driving to the Pacific Highway, where she was reportedly seen going over 100 miles per hour. The question now is why? Why did Danielle Johnson do this to her seemingly loving and supportive partner and her 2 innocent daughters? Law enforcement claims they are not sure. They said they're actively investigating. In fact, for a while they were saying they didn't even know if Danielle crashing into the tree was intentional or if it was an accident, if she meant to take her own life, or if, she was just out of her mind and lost control of her vehicle. However, Danielle's actions, which came just hours before the solar eclipse, would have been visible in her area, and it wouldn't have even been a total eclipse. In California, only a partial one. But the timing of this, it has raised questions, especially in combination with some social media posts that Danielle had been making leading up to the April 8th, 2024 eclipse. On April 5th, Danielle had posted on Twitter, wake up, the apocalypse is here, everyone who has ears, listen, your time to choose what you believe is now. If you believe a new world is possible for the people, retweet now. There is power in choice, repost to make the choice for the collective. On April 7th, Danielle reposted someone else's post saying, quote, alert, this is the final warning. Turn notifications on. Do not look at the eclipse. Something big is coming, end quote. I mean, in general, I feel like we shouldn't be looking at the eclipse, right? That's why we have glasses. You shouldn't be looking at the eclipse. I know that a bunch of people with this past eclipse were like, we can look at the eclipse. It's overkill. No, don't do it. Just don't do it. It's just, no, don't. Why tempt fate? On April 4th, Danielle had posted, quote, the eclipse is the epitome of spiritual warfare. Get your protection on and your heart in the right place. The world is very obviously changing right now, and if you ever needed to pick a side, the time to do right in your life is now. Stay strong. You got this, end quote. The next day, she reposted somebody else's post that said, quote, do you all understand why we haven't been sleeping fully? Warriors don't sleep when there's an energetic war summoning us to stay up, end quote. When the earthquake in early April hit New York and New Jersey in the days leading up to the solar eclipse, Danielle posted, quote, this is the truth they have to reveal. Their plans to be faultless. It is the code. White supremacy is designed to kill everyone else. This is the agenda. Wake up, end quote. She's also posted some anti-Semitic comments, specifically about how Jewish-owned Hollywood promotes the P word, quiet on set, all that stuff. Another shocking repost from April 5th was what appears to be a poster of some kind that read, quote, wherever Jews have settled, they have lowered its morals, deprecated its commercial integrity, segregated themselves, sneered at and undermined Christianity, built up a state within a state, and when opposed, tried to strangle that country financially. If you don't exclude the Jews from this nation in 200 years, your children will curse you, end quote. Man, this is bad. Just reading that out loud felt bad. I guarantee you YouTube, takes my video down because they're going to think that I'm, spreading this information. But listen, according to this picture that was posted, Benjamin Franklin said this, which, no, he didn't, because Twitter has a helpful little box underneath the post that said readers added context to this image. And it says that the poster shows a quote from the Franklin prophecy, which was an anti-Semitic speech falsely attributed to Benjamin Franklin. And it was debunked as fraud by the Franklin Institute, as well as American historian Charles Beard.
Anita and other neighbors now pouring over Johnson's social media posts.
I don't know if you've gone to her Twitter or X page, but we didn't realize how mentally unstable she was. A lot of anti-Semitic remarks.
Norman and others say Johnson and the family kept to themselves.
She was just very standoffish. When we walk our dog, she just wouldn't say hi.
But never imagined she was capable of what police say she did. So many in the building, Norman says, haunted by what happened on Monday.
Friends of ours heard pleading, blood-curdling screams, pleading for his life.
Although many of Danielle's beliefs sound extreme and really out there, she's not the only one who shares them, not by far. As we discussed at the top of the episode, solar eclipses that are visible from the Earth are quite rare. And on April 8th, an estimated 31 million people across the United States would be in the path of the biggest solar eclipse since 2017. Authorities in cities along the path of the eclipse began issuing warnings about possible loss of cellular service and electrical outages, and some towns even preemptively declared a state of emergency with National Guard troops on standby. But even though that sounds scary, and yeah, if you're like thinking the apocalypse is around the corner, hearing that stuff might, terrify you. But the reason for this was mainly due to the influx of tourists that these places expected. People coming from other areas that were outside the path of totality to be in the path of totality when the eclipse passed, because there's not going to be another one for a long time, apparently. But there were other events happening and falling into place as we geared up for the solar eclipse, and conspiracy theory accounts on social media went into an absolute fervor, frantically posting to ready their followers and whoever else came across their content for the dramatic and world-changing tragedies that the eclipse would trigger. And I know that this was happening because, I like a good conspiracy here and there, and TikTok thought you might like these ones. And for a while, I was like into it, because it was interesting. And it was like, this is cool. This is like kind of a little puzzle to put together. You'll see what I mean in a second. But then it started to get a little out of control and, a little like extreme, which they do sometimes. The conspiracy theories can spiral out of control at times. And it seemed that these specific conspiracy theories focused on a few possibilities. Mainly, the people who were spreading this information thought, believed, or claimed to believe that a group of elites were planning to use the eclipse as a cover to impose new regulations on the public and then usher in the New World Order. One of the people promoting this theory was controversial podcaster Alex Jones, who talked with a guest that he had on named Andrew Meyer about how the eclipse fell on a date on the Hebrew calendar where new energy can be pushed into the coming year. And basically, Alex Jones and his guests and anybody he talked to the eclipse about were saying that lizard people were going to come and they were going to subdue the population, take over, New World Order's coming in, the typical stuff.
For most of us, total solar eclipses are cool, rare, but otherwise unremarkable. But if you're Alex Jones, you believe that NASA is using the solar eclipse to initiate a dark Egyptian religious ritual, because why not? So here's a clip from a video that Jones posted on X with the caption, "Major events surrounding the April 8th solar eclipse, Masonic rituals planned worldwide to usher in New World Order." Let's watch.
NASA is notorious for performing Masonic rituals based on the Egyptian mystery schools. Apollo being the same character as Horus, Sirius representing Isis, and Atlantis being the new golden age they hope to restore. And during the eclipse on April 8th, NASA will fire 3 rockets named after Apep, the Egyptian serpent god, whose goal was to devour Ra, the sun. And when the sun reemerges after 3 minutes of darkness, it will be likened to the rebirth of Horus, their new king of the golden age.
I gotta say, that was a persuasive video, and I totally buy it.
Yeah.
The second the video started with an image of a lizard, that's it. I was done. It's over. Like, I lost it. I'm dead. I'm gone. Like, what is this?
And NASA, of course, is trying to bring back an ancient Egyptian snake deity. How could anyone believe that? But people do. Unfortunately for conspiracy theorists, their minds are a little jumbled, so they're not paying attention. They don't. The theory doesn't have to be within planets of logical or reasonable or true or not insane, right? Like so once you've crossed the Rubicon of insanity, NASA wanting an Egyptian snake to eat the sun to set up the New World Order makes perfect sense.
There's more. Of
course. Of course.
Let us be fair to Sir Jones, because he might have a point here, right? maybe there's a kernel of truth that we're missing. So as you can probably imagine, there is absolutely a rational explanation for the rockets. So Project APEP, it's shorthand for atmospheric perturbations around the eclipse path. Okay.
Wait till you get to the conspiracy theories on what that word means.
But it's also a reference to the snake god of darkness, supposedly the nemesis of the sun god Ra. Ostensibly, the title of the project, which is intended to measure changes in electric and magnetic fields, is a clever, albeit nerdy, reference to ancient Egyptian mythology.
So we heard a mention of NASA in that Young Turks clip. And I'm going to give you some context in the clearest and most concise way possible, considering the substance or the lack of substance of the information we're talking about. So during the solar eclipse, the NASA facility in Virginia launched 3 sounding rockets to study the disturbances in the electrified region of Earth's atmosphere known as the ionosphere, which is created when the moon eclipses the sun. So everyone was all agitated about NASA shooting rockets during the eclipse, and they became even more agitated when CERN announced that they had some plans for the eclipse as well. CERN is the European Organization for Nuclear Research, and it operates the largest particle physics lab in the world, which is located in Geneva, Switzerland. The lab was originally devoted to the study of the atomic nuclei, but it was soon applied to higher energy physics, concerned mainly with the study of interactions between subatomic particles. Many activities at CERN currently involve operating the Large Hadron Collider, which is the world's largest and most powerful particle accelerator. Now, I was never the best student at physics, so I'm going to read directly from the CERN website to explain what the Large Hadron Collider does and what is being studied throughout experiments performed with it. Quote, inside the accelerator, 2 high-energy particle beams travel at close to the speed of light before they are made to collide. The beams travel in opposite directions in separate beam pipes, 2 tubes kept at ultra-high vacuum. They are guided around the accelerator ring by a strong magnetic field maintained by superconducting electromagnets. The electromagnets are built from coils of special electric cable that operates in a superconducting state, efficiently conducting electricity without resistance or loss of energy. End quote. In 2012, using the Large Hadron Collider, CERN discovered the Higgs boson particle, and this was a very important scientific breakthrough, but it would take way too long to explain why at this moment, and I don't want to get too far off track, as I'm known to do. So CERN announces that they're going to fire up the Large Hadron Collider during the eclipse. And the conspiracy theories intensified. They were talking about like CERN was going to open a portal to the underworld so that the demons of the underworld could come out and wage war on the humans. Listen, instead of trying to tell you in an organized and understandable way, I'm just going to play you this TikTok.
Welcome to a day in the life on Earth in 2024. So early next week, the sun, which is 400 times larger than the moon, and coincidentally exactly 400 times farther away than the moon, will be 100% perfectly covered up by the moon during a total solar eclipse, because they appear exactly the same size in the sky, which is quite the coincidence, considering we are moving around the sun at 66,672 miles an hour, while the sun is hurling through a forever exponentially expanding space at 448,000 miles an hour, and the moon is just able to cover up the sun 100% perfectly, no more, no less. That is a bit of a coincidence if you ask me. Meanwhile, NASA will be firing 3 rockets into the total solar eclipse to study the air. And those rockets are named APEP, after the Egyptian serpent demon god of destruction and chaos. Don't believe me? Ask NASA for yourself. The mission is called APEP. The acronym was chosen because APEP is also the name of the serpent god from ancient Egyptian cosmology, who pursued the sun god Ra and every so often nearly consumed him, resulting in an eclipse. So they gave a very innocent and understandable reasoning for naming it APEP, but they forgot to mention that APEP represents the forces of chaos, death, and disorder. It's literally the opposite of light and good. It's pure evil. The serpent demon god of destruction is what they're naming the rockets that they're shooting into the sun after. But that's not all. Meanwhile, all of this is going on while NASA is shooting rockets into the total solar eclipse, and while the moon is perfectly covering the sun, CERN, who has a statue of the Hindu god of destruction right outside their door, will be firing up the largest machine in the entire world, the Large Hadron Collider. That's right, they are going to be firing billions of protons at each other at the speed of light in a 17-mile-long tunnel, trying to recreate the conditions 1 second after the Big Bang. And they are firing it up during the total solar eclipse. Besides the fact that they have the statue of the Hindu god of destruction right outside their door, I guess it's also just a coincidence that their logo is literally 3 sixes. And I guess it's also a coincidence that CERN is located in Geneva, Switzerland. And the Bible says that Satan lives where Antipas was put to death. And Antipas was put to death at the Apollyon Temple in Geneva, Switzerland. But it goes even deeper than that. CERN and the Large Hadron Collider are specifically located in a city called St. Genus Poli. I know I'm probably butchering that. But that city translates to Apolliacum, which was a village temple dedicated to Apollo. And Apollo is very closely compared and related to Shiva, which is the statue that they have right outside. And Apollo is very closely associated with destruction, means to destroy. And they have a statue of the god of destruction right outside, while NASA is shooting 3 rockets into the solar eclipse named after the serpent demon god of destruction. So CERN, whose logo is 666, who has a statue of the Hindu god of destruction right outside, is located at an ancient temple of Apollo. And the ancient temple of Apollo was believed to have a portal to the underworld right underneath it. And the Large Hadron Collider is located right on top of it, where they're trying to smash particles together to create what created the universe. The Bible says they had as king over them the angel of the abyss, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon and in Greek is Apollyon, that is, destroyer. I guess it's also a coincidence that the World Wide Web was created at CERN, and www translates into Hebrew as 666. So, not only will NASA, whose name means to deceive in Hebrew, be shooting 3 rockets into the total solar eclipse named after the serpent demon god of destruction, but at the same exact time, CERN, whose logo is 666, who created the World Wide Web that translates into 666, who has a statue of the Hindu god of destruction right outside their door that is built on top of a temple dedicated to Apollo, the god of chaos and destruction and the ruler of the underworld, they will be firing up the Large Hadron Collider and shooting particles at each other at the speed of light to create dark matter during the total solar eclipse. Does this not sound like they're trying to open a portal or send us into the upside down or something? Because honestly, the Large Hadron Collider looks a lot like that portal opener that they had in Stranger Things. And even one of the top scientists working on the Large Hadron Collider said, "Out of this door might come something, or we might send something to it." Does that not sound like a portal is opening up? Sergio Bertolucci said that. He is an Italian particle physicist and the former director of research and scientific computing at CERN. So I think he knows what he's talking about. So considering all of the satanic references associated with CERN that I just mentioned, including the human sacrifice ritual that happened right outside of CERN, right in front of the Hindu statue of destruction, I don't think that they're opening this portal for anything good. I'm gonna be honest. If you don't remember that CERN ritual happening, here's a video of it. I'm about to play it. What the? And then the fact checkers came out and said that it was just a bunch of scientists playing a prank on us and performing a fake human sacrifice ritual in front of the god of destruction, because scientists are just known for their pranks and human sacrifice is so funny. And on another note, the moon is also turning red. It's rusting because hematite is being found on it, and hematite is derived from the Greek word for blood. And I guess it's just a coincidence that the Bible says the sun will be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And that's exactly what's happening. I'm not gonna say it's the end of the world, but I'm not gonna say it's not.
So yeah, there's that. That was a lot. But you can see how stumbling upon it, you might be like, this is kind of interesting. It's got some history in there. It's, all kind of adding up. If you go into these conspiracy theories realizing and understanding that they're mainly just coincidences sometimes. And don't get me wrong, there's some conspiracy theories I 100% believe because I've looked into them and their support and it makes sense. A conspiracy theory on its own is not bad. It's a theory that there's a conspiracy of some kind happening. And we know that there are conspiracies happening all the time, all over the world. So it's not in and itself a bad thing. But when they don't really make sense, when they don't add up, when you have to really twist things to make them fit the narrative, that's when you know it's kind of a little bit out there in left field. But with this, I was interested because it kind of all fell into place and it made sense and it was just fun. Because even though you know it's probably not true, it's just a fun thought experiment and you have to give the people who are coming up with these theories credit because they're super creative. But yeah, this one got a little bit out of hand. Heath Rangerim, a well-known conspiracy influencer with over 75,000 subs on Telegram, told his followers, quote, "The eclipse sure would be the perfect cover story if our terrorist government wanted to take down the power grid and cause mass chaos while blocking all citizen communications. Kinda convenient if you want to declare martial law and unleash a dictatorship before Trump can win in November." End quote. Obviously, April 8th has come and gone. Power grid intact, cellular service intact, no demons of the underworld waging battle on us. As far as I can tell, they might be invisible, but I don't see them. And, we're all still in the same place we were before the eclipse. And maybe that's not a good place, but it's the same. So we have NASA firing off sounding missiles during the eclipse, CERN firing up their particle collider. And on top of that, there were other things going on that added fuel to the fear fire. Reportedly, a celestial body known as the Devil's Comet would be visible to the eye in the days leading up to and following the eclipse. This rarely seen comet, which makes an appearance only once every 72 years or so, has exhibited occasional outbursts during its journeys that give it a horned-like appearance, so it looks like a devil. And then there's the red heifer prophecy. In the Old Testament, there are apparently a lot of references to cows and cattle, and one of these references concerns a conversation between God, Moses, and Moses' brother Erin as they were leading the Jews through the desert towards the Promised Land. God told them to bring 3 red heifers without a spot on them to be burned alive so that the ashes of their bodies could be mixed with water and then used to purify those who had been exposed to death or negativity or something. So basically, it's a purification ritual. And now this ritual, which apparently is being geared up to be done in Israel, it's made a lot of people think that the end days are coming and the ritual's being done to purify everyone and to build this temple before the end of the world is here and the Messiah returns.
The red heifer prophecy is one that is being closely watched by Jews, Christians, and Muslims all over the world. This is one of the few prophecies that impact all 3 of what is called the Abrahamic religions, meaning the religions that all believe Abraham to be a prophet and progenitor of their religion. In short, it is believed that when the red heifer is sacrificed, it will usher in the last days and is one of the critical requirements prior to Christ's second coming. But for each religion, it means something different. This prophecy ties to the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem, commonly referred to as the Third Temple, as first there was the Temple of Solomon, which was destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 BC. The Second Temple was built by Herod, which existed at the time of Christ, and was destroyed by the Romans in 70 AD. Since that time, no temple has been built in Jerusalem, and Jews have been waiting for the opportunity to build the Third Temple as they believe it is a precursor to the coming of the Messiah. The Third Temple has been prophesied to be rebuilt in many places in Scripture. One of the 613 Jewish laws is about the red heifer, which Jews call the Para Adumah, and is outlined in great detail in Numbers 19, verses 2 through 10. According to Jewish law, this ritual needs to be performed to purify the people to prepare them for temple worship. When they say a red heifer, they don't mean a ruby red, they mean a brownish red, which by itself is not that rare. What is rare is finding one that isn't disqualified for some reason. The cow must be at a minimum within its 3rd year of life, i.e., 2 years plus a bit. It needs to be completely red. Even 2 hairs of a different color next to each other, or 3 hairs that are far apart, will disqualify it. Any physical blemishes that disqualify sacred animals disqualify a red heifer as well. Any work done with it will disqualify the cow. Work in this case includes even a person leaning on it or placing a garment or cloth upon it, unless that is done to only safeguard the animal itself. Placing a yoke on the cow, even if it doesn't actually do any work, also disqualifies it. If the heifer is pregnant, or even if a male has mated with it, it is disqualified. This makes it extremely rare to find a qualifying red heifer. Most of these requirements come from the Mishnah, the oral tradition of the Druze, and are not in the Torah itself, which again are the first 5 books of the Old Testament, i.e. the books of Moses. If the heifer gets too old, even 4 or 5 years old, other colored hairs begin to grow, which disqualify the heifer. Rabbis scour these animals almost continually, looking for anything that would disqualify them, so there is a very short window to perform the ritual even when a qualifying red heifer is found. To further emphasize how rare this is, since Moses, approximately 3,300 years ago, this ritual has only been performed 9 times. The first was overseen by Moses himself, and the last time it was performed was over 2,000 years ago prior to Christ's mortal ministry. Jews believe that the 10th sacrifice of a red heifer will usher in the building of the third temple, which is a prerequisite for the coming of the Messiah. Older beliefs state that it would be the Messiah himself that would perform the sacrifice. Christians believe that the temple in Jerusalem needs to be rebuilt prior to the second coming of Jesus Christ. Most believe that the temple will be built by the Jews, and as I said, the Jews believe the precursor to that is the sacrifice of the red heifer. The Temple Institute, an organization dedicated to preparing for the reconstruction of the Third Temple in Jerusalem, has been attempting to identify red heifer candidates for decades, based on the requirements of Numbers 19 and the oral tradition. In recent years, the Institute thought to have identified 3 candidates, one in 1997, another in 2002, and then another in 2018. However, all 3 of these were shortly after disqualified. What is capturing the attention of all the world right now is that in September 2022, 5 red heifers were imported from the United States with the help of an American farmer and evangelical Christian named Byron Stinson. He and Rabbi Yitzchak Mamo, an official from the Temple Institute in Jerusalem, worked to transfer the 5 qualified heifers to a breeding farm in Israel. One of the 5 has since been deemed unqualified, while the other 4 continue to be monitored.
In late March of 2024, it was announced that construction on the new temple had started, which meant the red heifers would be sacrificed after years of preparation and monitoring. I don't really feel comfortable with that. Not at all, but, to each their own, I guess. And that's not all, right? We've got the Devil's Comet, the red heifers, CERN, NASA. Let's add earthquake to that, because on April 5th, a 4.8 magnitude earthquake hit the New Jersey and New York area, which I think we can all agree is a pretty uncommon occurrence. Not a ton of earthquakes on the East Coast, but we are living in strange times, undoubtedly. Now, obviously, this did not help with the end days energy that was flying around some spaces on the internet in the weeks leading up to the solar eclipse. Now, when this happened, this earthquake, Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think she's from Georgia, she posted on social media, quote, "God is sending America strong signals to tell us to repent. Earthquakes and eclipses and many more things to come. I pray our country listens," end quote. So many people tied all of these events back to a passage in the Bible, Luke 21:11, where it says the kingdom of heaven will come in a time when there will be great earthquakes, famine, and pestilence, and fearful events and signs from heaven. Looking at Danielle Johnson's social media activity, we can clearly see that she bought into these beliefs 100%, at least publicly. She posted things about the red heifers. She posted things about NASA, about CERN, about the earthquake. On March 29th, she wrote, "Magic is real, spirits are real, gods are real, devils are real, religion is not," end quote. She also said that apocalypse means an unveiling of things not previously known, and she said there's a lot of that going on right now. She said, quote, "If you haven't noticed yet, all this shit is real. If you're a spiritual practitioner, keep your people safe. The world needs us now more than ever." And this is not an exaggeration. I don't create PSAs, but once again, this shit is real, end quote. But did Danielle Johnson believe the end of the world was imminent? And did she believe it enough to the point where she would take the lives of the people she loved and then take her own life? We have seen this before, where an individual takes themselves out, takes their entire family out, thinking that something bad is happening in the world, feeling that they are, saving their loved ones from certain pain and torture by removing them from the earthly plane. Officials are claiming that they can't prove Danielle Johnson's motive had anything to do with the eclipse, but based on her belief system and the timing, it's really hard to say unequivocally that the eclipse had nothing to do with Danielle's actions on April 8th. Our ancient ancestors looked at celestial events like solar eclipses with fear because they didn't have the knowledge to understand what it really meant. Because when humans live through times of confusion and uncertainty, they have to create narratives to make the unknown a little bit more known. And you could say that this is exactly what's happening in these modern times. Conspiracy theories are rife right now. They are bigger than ever before. And although we have so much knowledge through science and research, we are still living in confusing and unsettling times. Anyone can be susceptible to believing these theories, especially during times of crisis. Humans like certainty. They like having answers because it makes us feel like we're in control and prepared. Humans are also tribal by nature, and they will often unite around a certain cause or against a particular group, which offers them a sense of belonging and, once again, control. Like everyone else, I find a textured conspiracy theory to be interesting and fun, and I think a lot of us can align with that because some of these theories are very creative. They can lead you down riveting rabbit holes. It's like an escape room, kind of. You know it's not real. You know you're not actually in an escape room trying to get out, but the process of trying to get out is still fun. Probably more fun than if you were in an actual room and you couldn't get out, right? Now that I think about it, if I truly and genuinely believed these terrifying conspiracy theories, it probably wouldn't be fun. Now that I think about it. Okay, but they are fun for me. They're like little puzzles to solve and to sort of research and take apart and put back together. I don't know. The danger becomes when you take any ideology and attach it to your identity. Instead of objectively looking at something from an outside perspective, you bring it inside of yourself, losing your ability to be unbiased because now this belief system has become a part of who you are. It's still unclear if that's what happened with Danielle Johnson, but hopefully we'll learn more as time goes on. I think it's safe to say that Danielle probably had some mental health issues. Maybe she was having a little bit of a mental breakdown. It sounded that she was on her way to that. Her workload was a lot. She was still suffering from postpartum depression. She was having issues with her mother, so leaving no family support system. She had a ton of childhood trauma that she was still working through. And when someone's mind is already very much a raw nerve, like Danielle seems to have been, and then you add this conspiracy theory stuff, it's just more likely to absorb it in a way that it can no longer be objective. She could no longer be objective, and she genuinely seemed to believe in these things. And I do think that there was some connection. I don't know what happened. It's so sad. The police are going to tell us more eventually because they know more. They talked to the 9-year-old, and she's old enough to remember conversations between her mother and her mother's partner, Jalen. She would be old enough to know what they argued about that morning, and it'll give us better indication of why Danielle did what she did. But until then, we just don't know much. Now, I'm really interested to hear what you think about this in the comment section. Do you think the eclipse had something to do with it? Do you think Danielle's extreme beliefs and her exposure to these conspiracy theories had something to do with it? This doesn't have to be a political discussion, and I know that this issue, along with almost every other issue, has been politicized, and you fall on one side or the other, but it really doesn't have to be unless you feel like it. I'm not going to tell you what to say or what to talk about. But in general, I think it's more about the psychology of a person who is able to so fully believe things like this without hard evidence, without proof. And then when the eclipse comes and goes and nothing happens, what do these people then say? Like what it reminds me of the cults we've talked about in our cult series before, like the Seventh-day Adventists and all of these people who had these, magnetic leaders that would tell them the end of the world is coming. And then the leaders would get all their people to the top of the mountain on the day the end of the world was supposed to happen. And everybody would stand there and, wait for the rapture, and it would never happen. And then the leader would bring them back down and be like, oh, my math was off. It's actually a year and 3 days from now. So I guess we'll be back in that mountain in a little bit. Like, is that what these people, these conspiracy influencers are telling people after the eclipse comes and goes and nothing happens? Are they like, well, our math was a little off. Our calculations, we put an A here where we should have put an X, and we put a 2 there where we should have put a 6. It's actually not going to happen until another day, New Year's Eve 2028, whatever. Like, is that what's happening? And how many times are you going to be Chicken Little saying the sky is falling before the people who are following you and listening to you say, you don't know what you're talking about, Chicken Little. The sky is not falling. The sky is not falling, and every time you say it is, I hide in my bunker and I'm terrified for days and weeks and nothing happens, and I don't want this stress anymore, Chicken Little. No more. But anyways, that's all I have for you, besides saying that the 9-year-old girl in this case, Danielle's 9-year-old daughter, it's so sad to think about because Danielle carried the weight of her childhood trauma into her adulthood. And she seemed very self-aware. She seemed very aware in general of how important it was to heal that childhood trauma, or to prevent it from happening to begin with. It seemed she had a good handle on how to protect childhood. But what she ended up doing is causing more trauma to her 9-year-old daughter than Danielle herself would ever experience, than most children would ever experience. And that child is going to need a lot of therapy, a lot of help, a lot of support. And in the end, that's really what is the most tragic and sad thing about this, is Danielle wanted to break that generational trauma, and she didn't. And now she never can because she's gone. And it's very sad. And my prayers, my thoughts, my heart is with that 9-year-old girl. And I hope and I know that all of you will be sending her love and positivity as well. Before we go, let's talk about Stephanie's Small Business Showcase. And today's small business comes to us from Erin Brooks of Erin's Paws of Yarn. And I'm super pumped about this because I already emailed Erin. I told her she was going to be featured, and I commissioned her for a work of my own. Erin makes crochet plushies of people's pets, and she says it brings her so much happiness to make people's fur babies come to life, but it's extra special for her to make a pet who has passed over the rainbow bridge. And if she can bring even the tiniest bit of healing to someone's life, it will give her so much joy. And this is so important. Like, my dogs are so important to me. I mean, so many people that have dogs consider their dogs to be like their children, like their family. And when a pet passes away, it can be, and it often is, an incredibly traumatic experience for somebody, something they don't ever recover from. And they carry that pain with them, and they miss their dog so much. Oh, I just saw a TikTok the other day. It had me weeping at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to put it in here if I can find it. But it was so sad. But anyways, I always think about it. I think about how devastated I'm going to be when my own pets pass away. And, I always tell people, like, oh, when Rosie's gone, like, you won't see me for weeks. And when you do, I'll be wearing black for, years probably, because I'll be in mourning for the rest of my life for my lovely dogs. I love them so much. So this is such a great service. And when I first read the email, I was like, how are these plushies going to look? Like, do they actually look like the people's pets? Or do they just look like the dog breed? And I was pleasantly surprised to see that they actually look like people's pets. It's so cool. Because she sent me some pictures, and then I went to her Instagram, and on her social media and her Instagram, she puts pictures of the plushies next to the actual animal, and it's crazy. It's crazy how much these crochet plushies look like the actual animals. And so that's when I emailed her, and I was like, yo, I need you. I need you, Erin. Mobilize the troops. We need a plushie immediately, because I have a friend who is going through the loss of a pet right now, and I think they would very much like that. So go check Erin and her beautiful, sweet plushies out. I've linked her email where you can email her if you have a specific pet in mind, and you can send pictures of your pet. I've also linked her Instagram and her Facebook, so you can go and check that out there, and tell her I sent you, and tell her that we love her and we think she's doing God's work. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Don't forget to like the video if you liked it. Share it if you think it's worth sharing. Subscribe if you haven't already. Stay kind, stay beautiful, stay safe, and I'll see you very, very soon. Bye.
They're going back from the grave, calling out my name, better say I Hail Mary. Well, you don't said it's getting you slowly. So you got to let it go. I got blood, blood on the strings. Blood, blood on the strings. Blood, blood on the strings. Being played from my face, don't bleed. Got blood, blood on the strings. Blood, blood on the strings. Blood, blood on the strings. God knows it's been a rough week. Yeah, I'm channeling my son.